Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, before I get too many emails and messages about you're wearing the same t-shirt, oh you must be a grubby bugger. No, I've shot this on the same day obviously as the last one, the rum tasting, so fear not, no, I do have more than one t-shirt and I do shower. Right, get that out of the way first. What are we doing this afternoon? Right, okay, Tomatin. Now, Alistair, the rather nice rep from Tomatin, popped into the shop the other day, and because he was in the area, and basically said, "Oh, you haven't done a video of our new release, this one here, the Tomatin Legacy." And I said, "Well, you know how I like to do 4 whiskies in an episode of the program, and well, you know, it's just one, and I'm just waiting for a few more new releases to do something." "Oh, have a bottle of this," he says. "Have some of this." "Oh, thank you very much." So suddenly I have enough samples to do a tasting with. So hopefully that will keep the distillery happy. Doing another video there. So, anyway, I'm not quite sure whether I've done the obligatory waffle and a bit of history on Tomatin, but anyway, if I have, you just fast forward through this bit. Right, okay, so as you know, Tomatin's a nice Highland distillery. It was founded in 1897 as the Tomatin Spey Distillery Company. It went through a number of closed seasons, I guess you would say, until 1985, when the company went into liquidation. It was then bought by a Japanese company, Takara Shuzo Company and Okara and Company Limited, and became the first Scottish distillery to be owned by a Japanese company. Then in 1997, the Tomatin Distillery Company bought J&W Hardy, who obviously have the owners of the Antiquary blend, which a lot of Tomatin tends to end up in. And I'm basically, well, for the first time, I think it was about a year or so, maybe a bit longer, came into contact with Tomatin, and now you know, I buy directly from them, and I really like some of the bottlings they do. Can't say I'm a huge fan of 15-year-old, which is a single, it's a bourbon cask example. I personally find that the bottlings where they use some spirit aged in American oak and some in sherry cask seem to work the best. And you know, it's well, Tomatin certainly is growing. It's certainly got a bit. The main markets are America, Germany, France, Japan, and Sweden. And apparently, according to this, their sales in 2011 increased by 36%. So, got to be doing something right, I guess. Anyway, I guess that's enough of the waffle. Shall we have a look at the lineup for today's tasting then? Right, okay, that's that out of the way. Right, what are we looking at today? Well, obviously, aside from this, the brand new bottling, the Legacy. What's so interesting about that? I hear you saying, what is interesting about this? It's a no age statement, and no age statement whiskies seem to be very much in vogue at the moment. There's a number of distilleries that are releasing them. One other notable example is Talisker, that have just recently released a bottling called the Talisker Storm. Now, people seem to get a bit het up about no age statement whiskies, and I've got no idea why that is. I think it's this whole sort of fetishism with regards to age, and the misconception that older is better and all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I mean, there are 2 reasons why distilleries go down the no age statement route. The first is obvious. It allows stocks certainly younger stocks to be used, and it kind of takes the pressure off some of the older age statements, and the fact that, you know, you have to hang on to stock for 10, 12, 15 years. It obviously allows the younger spirit to be used up. However, you know, there was always a danger of the fact that, you know, you end up using too much young spirit, you end up with a whiskey that's just too young, doesn't have any complexity, and you know is not ruining the reputation of the distillery, but certainly you just sort of wonder why bother. The second reason is basically from a kind of a blender's point of view. It's the fact that you're not now tied to an age statement. You can create something. You can sort of design, I suppose, to a certain extent, a particular whiskey, a bottling, and from your own stocks you can sort of like, yeah, okay, I'll base it around sort of like this particular young spirit. It might be about sort of like 6 or 8 years old. I'll add in a little bit of older stuff, a little bit of sherry cask, something like that, and you can create sort of like, you know, an interesting sort of flavour combination. And there's certainly like I say, a number of distilleries that are certainly doing that. You know, I guess sort of like, you know, master blenders kind of love doing this sort of stuff, you know. So anyway, enough about that. But so, you know, let's have a look at what we've got in front of us. So right, Tomerton 12-year-old. It's like I said, it's spirit that's been basically aged in both American oak and sherry cask, as you can see from the colour. It's a nice dark-ish kind of colour, and is, you know, the entry level, I suppose, for want of a better word. You know, it's the relative cheap one in the range. So that we'll be looking at that. This is a very, very special bottling. This was called Decades. It was released last year, and as far as I'm aware, it's all finished now. There's no more of it left. It was the distillery manager Douglas Campbell celebrated 50 years working at Tomerton, which is a hell of an achievement when you think about it. So what he did was he created this particular bottling called Decades and chose a cask or a couple of casks or whatever from each of the decades that he'd spent working there. So it started with a 1967 refill sherry cask, which is about 40 years old, and I have tasted the 40-year-old Tomerton, and believe you me, it is something pretty special. He then chose some Oloroso butts from 1976, some refill sherry casks from 1984, a first fill bourbon cask from 1990, and a first fill bourbon cask from 2005. So we're expecting something quite complex. We're expecting a sort of a lovely moulding together of all these different elements, and you know, hopefully getting the something from each of those sort of separate casks. But obviously we will see when we get there. This is the brand new bottling, the Tomerton Legacy. What's so interesting about this? Well, it's been partly aged in American oak, obviously, you can tell from the colour, but it's also been partly aged in virgin oak casks, which means it's going to have a lot of oak, a lot of vanillin, a lot of sweetness. Certainly I have tasted this, and you can see all my tasting notes for these particular bottlings on my WordPress blog. But I think basically, if this had been all completely virgin oak, it would have just been an oak monster. It would have just been too unbalanced. And so obviously vatting it together with some normal American oak aged spirit has certainly sort of balanced it out, and we'll obviously explore that further in the show. So, and finally, this was again another release from last year. I think this is the first time that Tomerton have done a single cask bottling, or I could be wrong. It's a single sherry cask from 1992, bottled at 53.9%, and we still have some stock of that, as we do the 12-year-old, and we'll be getting some of this in fairly shortly. So obviously that's got my seal of approval. Oops, giving the game away there before we got there. Right, so guess not much else to say, and should we crack on and start with the 12-year-old then? Right, okay, what did I like about Tomerton? Well, it kind of had that sort of granitiness that you often find with a lot of Highland distilleries, but it had sort of a lovely freshness that the sherry and the American oak seemed to sort of, you know, meld together really, really nicely. And like I said, the only one that I found particularly disappointing in the whole range was the 15-year-old, which was, I thought, when I sort of looked at it and thought, it's American oak, I'm going to love that. But, you know, anyway. That's besides. Let's see what the nose on the 12-year-old gives us. Now, the last time I tasted this is different from the last time I tasted it, and I must admit I did have a chat with Alistair, and it's batch variation basically. This particular 12-year-old is a lot heavier on the sherry. It has more of that kind of baked fruit kind of character, which does leave me a little bit on the cold side. The first time I tasted the 12-year-old, it was just gorgeous. It had that sort of lovely freshness to it, and vibrancy. And although this has got, you know, if you like sherry cask whiskies, obviously it's got more of that character, more of the sort of dark fruits, like maltiness, and you know, a lot more of the sherry character. But to me, I feel it's a step backwards. It's lost the freshness somewhere along the lines, and it's lost the, like I said, lost the vibrancy and the granitiness that you certainly seem to get. I mean, there is a granity element there, but it just seems to be more pronounced, certainly with American oak bottling. So, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's certainly not shabby at all. I mean, you know, you cannot argue the quality is really good. It's just that baked fruit character, and it's not too pungent. I mean, there are certain other whiskies that I've tasted that are too much of it, but it's clean. There's no sulphur. You know, like I said, if you like your like more sherry character in your malt, then certainly this is not a bad one to go for. So, palate. Ooh, very drying. A lot more sherry cask. A lot more tannin, a bit chocolate. There is a granity note there, but it's a lot of dried fruits. And it's just, again, I think the palate is just sort of lacking that sort of freshness from the American oak. A little bit on the short side, but it's got a nice subtle spiciness and a nice richness. It's certainly mouth filling, and like I said, lots of dried fruit, lots and lots of sherry character. And like I said, the sherry is spotlessly clean. There's no sulphur, no off notes. Just for me, I prefer the earlier bottling. So anyway, like I said, still not a bad malt to go for if you're into that kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Right, okay. Decades in. Let's see what the nose gives us. Oh, now that is a beautiful nose. That is balanced. You get the sweet, dried, sort of fruitcakey, Christmas puddingy, sort of dried sherry fruits. But it's all kind of wrapped up in this lovely American oak, fresh, granity, vanilla-y, fruity kind of character. It's gorgeous. Spicy, deep. Like I said, it's just so well put together. You get a little bit of sawdusty oak from the 1990 bourbon casks. You get fresh vanillins from the younger bourbon casks. Oh, you get some lovely sort of dates, apricots, dried fruit, spice from the richer Oloroso, but it's kind of tempered a bit by the refill sherry casks. I mean, that is just an absolutely spot on nose. I mean, I imagine sort of any blender would be, you know, justifiably proud of putting this together, because this is absolutely stunning. And I mean, and also, I mean, the packaging was really nice as well. I know at the end of the day that one shouldn't be swayed by the packaging, but you know, it was really nicely packaged. and certainly sold a lot of this over Christmas because it just hit the right price point, and that was another thing. It could have easily whacked a sort of, you know, a big chunk on that, you know, and sort of flogged it for sort of 90, 100 quid, and fair dues to the guy, you know, it's, why not? But, you know, you have to say that when it was selling at Christmas for, you know, just over the sort of 50 odd poundish mark, you know, absolute bargain for the quality, really, really was. Oh, it's just gorgeous, really fruity, lovely, evocative, aromatic, just stunning, just absolutely stunning. Oh. Ooh, yeah. Kicks off with the American oak. You get the sawdusty, you get the youthful, or slightly youthful, sort of buttery vanillins, and then the sort of like the sherry starts to come through, not in sort of like, you know, big globs of it, but, you know, lovely subtle dried fruits intermingling with all that lightly tropical fruit. Oh, some gorgeous spices, and it finishes with this sort of lovely highlandy, granity sort of tartness, almost a sort of citric tartness, which just absolutely wonderfully cleanses the palate. I mean, it's just, oh, it's absolutely superb. I think it's bottled at 46, yeah, 46%. Certainly that extra sort of elevated alcohol level again sort of adds to the sort of like the freshness of the finish. But oh, that is just wonderfully good, absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, it's what you want from sort of like, you know, all the different casks. You get a little bit of something from everything. It's just harmonious, it's balanced, and yeah, that's what does it for me. You know, I kind of bang on about sort of balance and that kind of thing, but when you taste something as good as that, you know, it all kind of makes sense. You know, like I say, you're getting all the flavours from all the different casks. None of them are kind of like, you know, blanketing or outweighing the other. They're all just creating this lovely harmonious character. So yeah, hats off to Douglas for that one. That was a damn good bottling. Mm. Right, okay, on to the brand new release, The Decades. Like I said, I mean, we haven't got any stock of this at the moment, but I'll certainly be getting some stock in next month. And so keep an eye on the website if this sort of sounds like your cup of tea. So anyway, those. Oh, that's fruity. Tropical bananas, apricots, fleshy yellow fruits. This is, oh, wow, big nose, very sweet as well. I mean, I suppose you could argue it's a bit of a girly whiskey. It's basically a whiskey that if you like Edredor, for example, you love the sweet sort of honey, sort of barley kind of character of Edredor, then you know this is right up your street. It's a big nose. It's an in your face. It's a wow factor nose. But you know it has some subtle complexity to it. It has some sort of vanillins, or lots of vanillins. But it really showcases how luscious and fruity Tomatin can actually be. Like I said, I think if this was wholly aged in virgin oak casks, it would have just been sort of like a complete and utter oak monster. And you certainly get the impression that the American oak is just kind of tempering it down a little bit. It's kind of, you know, just sort of just taking the edge off all the huge oak vanillins, but a little bit of spice now maybe. Creamy. It's a lovely nose. It's really appealing. It's luscious. Like I said, it's. I mean, you know, I know that sort of Yeah, okay, it's girly whiskey. I mean, that's not to say that all women sort of just want sort of like sweet and easygoing and all that kind of stuff, but I can certainly see the appeal for that kind of consumer. But yeah, it's lovely. It is really, really nice. It's probably not a dram that I would want to drink all of the time because it is so big and so juicy and sweet. And but it's certainly, yeah, a sort of one to go for every now and again. So anyway, palate. Mm. Broad, mouthfilling, full, tropical, pineapples, apricot, pineapple, banana, a little bit of citrus, bit of balance, lots of vanillins, little bit of drying, lightly chocolatey tannins on the finish. It's nice. That's good. That's really enjoyable. It's kind of a lot of it's all very upfront, very immediate, but it tails really nicely and finishes with quite a nice length to it. Like I said, I think certainly if that was all American oak or virgin oak, that would just be a big puckering sort of you'd probably get sort of a big hit of sort of the tropical fruit, but then the oak would just go and that would be it. They'd be game over. So I think they've balanced that really well. I think and with, like I said, with the sort of granity sort of citrus notes on the finish, it cleans it up a little bit. It stops it becoming sort of like overly sweet and flabby and what have you. So again, it's like I said, it's probably not one that I would sort of want to drink all of the time, but I can certainly see, like I said, Edredor drinkers sort of really getting off on this, and it'd be quite nice to have something other than Oban to tempt Edredor drinkers. Oh, I want something sweet. Oh, there's Oban. Oh, look, right, let's try this one instead. So like I said, I think if you like your Edredor, then give this one a try, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. So nice. Right, okay, and finally we're on to the single cask, the 1992 sort of bottle last year. Let's see what the nose gives on this. Like I said, single sherry cask. Let's see. Yeah, it's a big leafy Oloroso monster. It's got some herbalness, some licorice, treacle, all those sherry cask characteristics. Pretty clean. Although I think I remember the first time I tasted this that there was a little bit of sulphur, and it's just in the background. I mean, it's certainly not going to put you off this, but it is just there. But I think the sort of sherry cask goes lovely, rich, juicy, slightly spicy, cinnamony, little bit of smoke. It's complex. And I think if you like sort of Macallan, you like Glengoyne, you like the sort of big sherry cask whiskies, then this is definitely one you should consider. Palate. Whoa. Chocolate City. Bitter. Dark chocolate. Tannins. Alcohol also adds to a kind of drying sensation. Oh, but that's long. That's so long. And now I'm getting moist sort of fruit cake, dates, raisins, sultanas, a little bit of almost like armagnac-y kind of dried fruit rancio. Really complex. That's a lovely sherry cask. I mean, as you know, I'm not the world's greatest fan of sherry casks because I tend to find them a little bit blanketing. And yes, there is no real distillery character. There's none of the granity freshness, and it is all about the sherry cask. But that sherry cask is good. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of sulphur, but it's certainly not sort of like distracting from the overall appeal of this particular whiskey. Really long, loads and loads of fruit. It's good. It's lovely malt. It's like all these sort of things, that there's a customer for everything. There are people that love sort of your clean, crisp bourbon oak cask whiskies. There are people that love your sort of, the sort of the blended balance between, the sort of whiskies like Decades that sort of use both a bit of sherry and a bit of American oak, and personally that's certainly where I kind of lie. And there are people that like sort of like big sherry monsters, and at the end of the day, when you taste a whiskey, when you sort of evaluate it for its quality, you have to kind of put your preconceptions away, or certainly put them to one side. You have to sort of basically say, okay, I'm evaluating this whiskey on the quality of the spirit. I'm not evaluating it upon sort of whether I particularly like this style or not. And as a retailer, you have to recognise the fact that there are people that are going to like all these different styles of whiskey, and it's up to sort of people like me to sort of taste these kind of things and say, look, if you like this type of whiskey, then go for this one. If you like this type of whiskey, go for that one. So it's I try to be sort of like open. I try to be as honest as possible, and unprejudiced when tasting these sort of things. So, and I hope that comes across, because at the end of the day, I know what personally floats my boat, so to speak, and one tries to sort of try and get inside the mind of the customer that comes in. So, anyway, enough about all of that. Let's sum this up, shall we? Right, okay, so Thomasin. Yeah, I really like Thomasin. It's a great distillery, lovely people. I mean, I've not been up there and met them, but I've had conversations with them and email exchanges and what have you, and they're always up for sending me samples and sort of saying, right, this is the latest thing we've got, and as a reviewer, as a retailer, that's the kind of thing you like. You like the sort of distilleries to want to sort of say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Rather than just basically saying, oh, this is the latest thing we're flogging. Here you go. Here's some distillery tasting notes, and you ask for samples, and they go, ha ha ha, not a hope in hell. And you just kind of feel sort of a little bit more disposed towards sort of like distilleries that sort of want you to taste their samples and want you to be enthusiastic and sort of do videos like this, because it's good PR at the end of the day. But anyway, enough about all of that. Let's talk about what I got in front of me. 12-year-old. It's good. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's just not as good as what it was, and I think that's purely down to batch bottling. It's a little bit too heavy on the sherry. It's a little bit too baked for my tastes. I certainly said to Alistair the rep, when I tasted this for the World Whisky Awards, although quality is really good, it just wasn't what it was, and basically I would say to the distillery, next time you do a 12-year-old bottling, just make sure you get the balance a little bit more better. Less sherry, a little bit more American oak, just get the balance to look better. You know, that's all I'm going to say about that one. Decades, oh, just unbelievably good. You know, if you bought a bottle of this and are enjoying it, then you know you got an epic dram. You know, absolutely gorgeous. Can't fault it whatsoever. The new Legacy, well, like I said, you know, it's going to appeal to Edredor drinkers. It's going to appeal to sort of like, you know, people that like their malts a little bit on the sweeter side, a little bit more sort of like vanilla-y and tropical. I think if you like Arran, if you like things like Glencadam, you know, those kind of malts, then, you know, this is certainly going to be up your street, and it's a lovely malt, and it's different, it's interesting, you know, and you can't ask for more than that. And the single sherry cask, pretty good, you know, as sherry casks go. A little bit of a blemish, but you know, it's certainly not as bad as some Glengoynes I've tasted, or some old malt lacs and all that kind of stuff. You know, there are certainly a damn sight worse sulphur sherry casks about on the market, Bunnahabhain and things like that. You know, so you know, if you like your sort of like your sherry cask drams, if you like those kind of things, then certainly I think this is definitely up your street, so to speak. But for me personally, the Decades is the one that does it for me. It's just the balance, it's the harmony, it's the elegance, and certainly that's a superb dram. Just shame I can't flog it to you anymore, but there you go. That's life. So anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the show. Certainly, I hope this has kind of like whetted your appetite to at least you know, have a look at some of the Tomatin bottlings, whether it's the 12-year-old or the 18-year-old, or you know, one of the older expressions. Like I said, all my tasting notes you can find on my WordPress blog. All of these, apart from obviously the Decades, are available on our website, www.gauntleys.com. And so, you know, all that's left to say is I hope you enjoyed the show, and good dramming and good afternoon.
They were once known as angels from the sky of heaven, but now they are known as devils, demons, alien monsters. Let them fill your dreams with wanton fever.